This week, I sort of took a departure from the kind of films I usually watch. I mean, I do watch a lot of films on Mubi, as you've seen in previous videos of mine, and I, I guess I saw some stuff that was interesting on it, but I decided I'll only watch one this week, and there is one I am interested in on Mubi. There's probably more. I think there's more than one, but it's a Godard movie, and it expires tomorrow night, um, midnight time Pacific and 3 a.m. Eastern. Um, so I think I'll watch a Godard film probably tomorrow on Sunday. I did watch another Godard film, but I talked to you about that one, I believe, last week, which I didn't think it was that fantastic. And I have no idea if this next Godard film is going to be that fantastic either. It's like I think it's 1990s maybe, or is it 93 or 1990? I don't know. And they also have certified copy on there on Mubi right now. It doesn't expire. I don't remember exactly when it expires, but it's on there for a little while, I guess. And then it has Juliette Binoche, and it's directed by Abbas Kiarostami. I think he's an Iranian filmmaker, and I think I'll watch that definitely. Those two, but I've been watching this been watching another streaming platform of mine called Shudder, which is a horror streaming service. So I've been watching a bunch of movies off of that. Um, before I get to that, before I get to those movies, I'll tell you what I watched off of a movie. I watched this on Sunday, August 12th. I watched a film called Victoria, which is a film from Germany. It's directed by Sebastian Schipper. Um, my impression of this movie, it's 138 minutes. It's a continuous take film. It's like Russian Ark. There's another film I believe that maybe longer than Victoria, or longer than Russian Ark, or maybe Victoria's longer than that one, or Russian Ark was like, I don't know if it was the first. I think it was the first film. There was one continuous take, no cuts at all during the whole film, and it was like a 70-minute film. I own it in my collection. I believe I've shown it. Well, no, I have shown it. I've shown my whole collection in my videos. I did like 69, 70 videos of all my movies that I have, and in one of those videos you'll see Russian Ark. But anyways, Russian Ark is this film that was shot on video camera, and it was like 70 minutes because I think that's all they could store on the hard drives or flash, whatever they stored it on. It wasn't film. It wasn't film cartridges. It was video storage. It was like film cards or cartridges or whatever. And it was like 70, 75 minutes or so. But this film's longer. It's 138 minutes. The plot of the film basically is this girl named Victoria meets a bunch of people. They're all men, and the starting's kind of stupid. I mean, they come out of this nightclub and they just walk around and talk to each other. A lot. Some of the dialogue is in English. Some of the dialogue is in German. My hearing's not the most fantastic because I've been listening to loud music during my life, and I have tinnitus. So I couldn't hear everything they were saying, and I think I was running the air conditioner, so that didn't help either, and the fan. But I thought the dialogue was a little, at the start of the movie, was a little self-aware of itself, or just playful for the sake of being playful. And the plot of the film didn't really go anywhere until later in the movie. I would recommend this movie because of its unique contribution to cinema, being a long, continuous 2 hour and 18-minute take. I don't want to say too much about it. Like at the start, they go into the store and they take take like a few bottles, and maybe some snacks from this. They shoplift is basically what they do. And then after they are walking around town at night, after they got out of the nightclub at the very start, they go up to this roof and they talk and drink, and she hugs them and she says, "I gotta leave. I gotta open the cafe where I work." So she goes to the cafe and she goes with this guy that she meets with the group. Then they come to pick him up, and then she gets involved with them again. They need her to help her, to help them. I mean, and that's when complications ensue, and then the film really gets interesting, and I recommend it really for the other 2/3 or other latter half or latter 2/3 of the film. That's when it becomes really interesting and worth watching. And how it ends is really good. So I give this film, out of 5 stars, I'd give it I give it 3.5. 3.5. Okay, so now I go on into the departure from the usual types of movies I do watch. I like to watch a lot of foreign movies, as I think I said before, because you get to see like a different culture and how they approach things differently than we do, and yet they're human and are like us in a lot of ways. We're all human, so you find the humanity within other cultures, and yet the differences that another culture can make you think differently about things. But this is not really the case with these movies. These are horror movies. It's from a series on Shudder. It's called The Last Drive-In, and it's hosted by this Texas guy named Joe Bob Briggs, and he's hosted other television shows. Well, this is technically not a television show because it's on a streaming platform. But he did I think it's called I've never had cable, so I think it was TNT and another cable channel. He would host these horror marathons or series. Well, I don't know if they're marathons or series. I saw some. I got acquainted with them by watching him on YouTube. I've seen him in person a few times. I saw him talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Alamo Drafthouse in Yonkers, New York, and he also did another movie there. He did some trivia about that, and I can't remember the name of the movie for the life of me. But anyways, so I think I think I mentioned last week that I watched one of the films in the series, but I watched a whole bunch of them this week. So the first one I watched was a film called Sleepaway Camp. All these next films, I forgot the days I watched them, but I think it's like Mondays, Tuesdays. Each day of the week I watched them, so there's like 6 of them. And I think I watched one Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I watched them all. I just finished watching one just a little while back, not too long before I started recording this video. So the first movie I watched off of is, well, it's the second in the series, but the first movie I watched this week of the last drive-in is a film called Sleepaway Camp. It's directed and written by Robert Hiltzik. It's a 1983 slasher. It's not my cup of tea, really, Sleepaway Camp. But the ending, the plot, well, maybe I'll just, with these films, I'll give like how the film opens, and then I'll just stop it there. But anyways, this, I don't know if they're brother and sister or cousins. They're with their father or uncle or whatever, and they're on a sailing boat, and they're across. They're on the sailing boat, and they're across the lake from this camp that becomes integral to most of the story. And this speedboat with this two young teenagers, a boy and a girl, I think they're teenagers, and a girl water skiing in the back. The girl in the boat, she wants to drive the boat, and the boyfriend doesn't, or if he's a boyfriend, whatever. And so they switch, and while they're switching, they hit the sailboat, and I think they kill the father or uncle or whoever he is, and they put the two cousins or brother and sister into shock. And they fast forward like 10 years later, and the brother and sister, I think they're cousins, are being taken to this camp, the camp that you see across the lake at the start of the movie. And at the camp, my phone, I'm looking at my notes on my iPhone, and it keeps, because I don't keep the screen on it, it should, I have to unlock the phone again. That's why I'm looking down like this. Anyways, this film was, I said directed by Robert Hiltzik. So the girl in the film, she doesn't talk a lot during the start, and people think she's a little odd. And you see two particular like flashback scenes, both of which take place on a bed, where this girl and a girl and a boy look at each other are on the bed looking at each other, and then you see these two men sleeping with each other, and that's like a key to what happens later in the movie. You find out what that clues you in on. So this film, it was okay. It's not really my cup of tea. It's not like, heavy drama or like a heavy, how can I put it? It's not like it's not epic. It's not thought provoking. I guess the ending is thought provoking. That's why I sort of turned. I began to like it more as I was watching, but all these people start getting killed in the camp. One of the campers, one of the kitchen staff, one of the counselors, and so this film I probably would give 3 stars. 3 stars. It's good, but not great. So the next film I've seen before, I saw it on Mubi. I watch it anyways because you see when you watch this Joe Bob Briggs last drive-in, he conducts the series is conducted like if you were watching TV and you would actually have commercials in between, while you're watching the movie. There's no commercials, but what happens is at parts of the movie that you're watching, it cuts for a second and it goes to Joe Bob Briggs talking about the film, and then it goes back. And he gives you these interesting tidbits of trivia about the movie and some interesting facts. And in it, I think they're giving like a free trial of Shudder to people, if they want to watch, any movies off of Shudder or like these like this late um, la- last drive-in marathon of Joe Bob Briggs, they're providing it with a free subscription. But after like maybe it's 14 days, they they probably charge you. So you probably have to give them a credit card. When if you want to start a free membership to Shudder. I'm not quite sure on that, but that may be a way for you to watch some of these or maybe all of these for free, and then not click on to subscribing for Shudder. I don't know, but I like this Shudder. I haven't watched a lot of it since I've had it. Well, I've watched some of it. I watched Black Christmas, and I watched another Christmas Evil, I think it was called, which is kind of still cheesy movie. It was an interesting movie, and I think I watched a few other ones besides this last drive-in. But I really like the fact that I have these streaming platforms, so I have a lot of choices. I have Fandor too, and Netflix, and Mubi, of course, and Shudder. So, but Rabbit concerns Marilyn Chambers, who was a porn star. She was in a 1972 hardcore film called Behind the Green Door. Let's see. So this film starts off. There's this plastic surgery place in Montreal, like in the outskirts of Montreal. This family is turning around their van because they missed a turn someplace where they're going, and the husband doesn't want to look at the map. Back in those days, they didn't have GPS. And his car, he can't start the van up when he's turning around. Back in those days, they didn't have fuel injection like they do now in cars. So he can't start the car up, and this couple that's on a motorcycle, one of the couple being Marilyn Chambers, hit the van, the motor van or whatever it is, the camper, and they go crashing into the grass. And I think the boyfriend, he's hurt but not too damaged, but she's really bad. So they graft her. They try like plastic surgery procedures on her, which probably were kind of novel in those days because the film came out in what year did it come out? 77, I think, because even though I didn't write it down, I think it's 77. And I think it was a second feature of Cronenberg, and he made him with these, the Screen Gems, I think, was the production company that produced it for him, and he had to put, like, pornography somewhat in the film in order to get it produced. So he had to, like, get a little of that, so he had to like show Marilyn Chambers' breasts in the film, and but anyways, she gets a virus, and then she starts biting people, and they start going crazy and biting people and foaming at the mouth, and it turns into an epidemic in Montreal, like martial law, and they're sort of like zombies, but like Joe Bob Briggs says, David Cronenberg is an atheist, so he's into body horror, so he's you can't really you kill these people with rabies with regular guns. It's not like zombies where you have to shoot them in the head, because like when you shoot zombies in the stomach, nothing happens, But when you when you shoot them in the head, they die. But in the case of this, this is just a virus. So if you just shoot the people, they're dead. So, but this film I like a lot, and I like Cronenberg. I really like his movies. I like History of Violence a lot, and maybe Videodrome Videodrome is probably one of my favorite movies. I like a top 10, a tentative top 10. and then other ones that can replace those films in the top 10 by the same directors. But I have like 40, 50 favorite films of all time, and Videodrome is one of them. And History of Violence is not bad too. Um, so I really like his films. I have Naked Lunch, which I haven't watched before, that I have yet to watch as Criterion. But Rabid, I really like a lot. So I'd give this film probably, I give it 4 stars. I think 4 stars. Yeah, I give it 4 stars. I highly recommend it. It's also produced by Ivan Reitman, who would later go on to produce Ghostbusters and a whole lot of other important movies or big movies. So the next film I watched was The Prowler. It's directed by a guy named Joseph Zito. Stars Farley Granger, who I believe was in Strangers on a Train. And it also features the special makeup effects of Tom Savini. Tom Savini, maybe his first entrance into the film world was with Dawn of the Dead. That's where I became aware of him. Maybe I should rephrase, take that back a bit. I mean, I saw Creepshow, and he did those. He did some other movies like Friday the 13th when I saw him when I was younger. So maybe, and I knew of Tom Savini then because I met him once, and he signed his whatever that book he wrote. He signed it for me. But anyways, this film takes place. Where does it take place? I don't know, somewhere in America. But it takes place in New Jersey, Cape May, I think it is. They wanted to shoot it, I think, in a place called Avalon, California. I'm getting some of this information from Joe Bob Briggs, but anyways, it starts off right after World War II has ended, and a couple go to this gazebo and they get killed by this prowler who has a pitchfork. And there's like a lot of holes in this movie, a lot of plot holes that don't make any sense. Like, why does he have a pitchfork? Why is he killing people? Why does he come back 40 years later? Because the remainder of the movie after the first killing takes place in the 80s. And he's killing people, and they're... Oh, and then another thing that Joe Bob Briggs brings up is these are college graduates, and they're having a graduation dance, and of course it's more of a high school thing. And also, at a certain point in the film, well, I don't know if I should say anything. Somebody goes into a swimming pool. That doesn't make any sense because why is there a swimming pool? Why is she going in? There's no introduction to the swimming pool. It's a plot device. One of the main characters is a policeman. He drives a Jeep. I don't think it has police lights on it, and there's no radio inside. And of course, some of this is what Joe Bob Briggs is saying. And so there are a lot of plot holes in this movie. I mean, it's kind of entertaining, but don't expect this to be a good movie because it's not. You know, the special the makeup effects are what make the movie interesting. But as far as story goes, it's really weak on that. So I'd give this film probably 2.5 stars. So I barely put my thumbs down on it. So next up we got another movie. It's so bad it's entertaining. I don't know if I should recommend it or not, but I'll tell you the title first. The title of it first is it's got a really weird, funny name: Sorority Babes and the Slime Ball Ballorama. It's also called The Imp. I guess The Imp, maybe in Europe, maybe. It's directed by a man named David de Coteau, loosely based on the classic short story The Monkey's Paw, and it came out in 1988. It was shot basically in a bowling alley. Maybe some of the scenes, like towards the start, were shot in another area, but they shot in this bowling alley. Maybe it was the whole thing was a mall entirely, because there's some other shots that I think are not bowling alley, but they look like they're in a mall. But they shot the crew shot those scenes while the mall slash or just the Bolorama were closed at the time, during the nighttime. And they shot this film in 9 days. It probably shows. But the last one I'm going to mention, it has bad sound. And this film has excellent sound. Not that I'm praising this film, but I'm just saying that even though it's a bad movie, it's got good hearing. You can hear the dialogue, whereas the last one you can't. I mean, you can hear the dialogue. What I'm saying, the sound is better. It sounds better. But of course, this is by a few decades. This one is 88, and the last one I'm going to talk about is the 60s. So I think they're two different film gauges. This is like 35 millimeter, and the last one I believe looks like it's 16. So anyways, these three nerds at the start of the movie, they a few of them are trying to encourage this other nerd to go to this sorority, look through the window, and see these initiation rites that are being passed by the older girls in the sorority on the younger ones. And of course, red flags pop up again, flaws in the movie, holes in the plot, which are like, why are there only three older sorority girls in the sorority and only two being initiated when there should be more people in the sorority house? So then anyways, they find these nerds watching, and so they make the nerds and the freshman girls their challenge is to go to the Bolorama and they're supposed to steal a bowling trophy. So they go there, they come across a girl, like a juvenile delinquent type girl, and one thing happens. What happens is an imp comes out of the bowling trophy and starts asking, like a genie, saying, just, if you have any wishes, let me know what your wishes are, and I'll make them come true. But of course, there's a caveat in that, and things don't turn out as planned, and it's ridiculous. The movie's ridiculous. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's kind of entertainingly bad. The imp is kind of the mechanics for the imp. You can sort of tell it's like a puppet. It's not very convincing in a sense, but it's sort of, in an entertainingly bad way, it is convincing in that sense. I don't know, take it or leave it. There's some scenes like, I think this guy worked in porn before this movie. Like there's a scene where one of the I think it's one of the big sorority girls, that one of the older ones, the ones that have been in the college longer, she strips her clothes off and she's trying to force the young nerds' clothes off and, really pinning them down to the floor, trying to have sex with them, and, so this is one of those typical 80s movies, and I'm not wild about these types of movies entirely. I'm basically gravitate to more, people like Fellini and Bergman and Kurosawa and Fassbender and Buñuel and Antonioni and Kubrick and Kurosawa, Fincher. like I've said in my videos before and all that stuff. Um, but if you want to see a movie that doesn't make a lot of incredible sense, but is way entertaining, I leave it up to you. I'm going to give this film, out of 5 stars, I'm going to give it I'm going to give it 2.5 stars, meaning I don't think it's a good film, but it's marginally bad. It's almost good, but not great. It's just, I can't quite recommend this, but if you want to see a film that's kind of entertainingly bad, cheesy, you don't have big expectations for the film, you just want to see some kind of silly 80s movie, then might be your film. That's what I'm saying. So, okay, so next up we got a film, much better movie, Daughters of Darkness, directed by Harry Kumel, who I think is a Belgian or something, like Joe Bob Briggs said. This stars Delphine Seyrig. She would make her name, I think her first film that would really rise her into the stratosphere of foreign film actresses. She's a French film actress. Is Last Year at Marienbad, which was directed by Alain Resnais, which came out in the early 60s, which is a very, 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 very avant-garde movie. I mean, it doesn't have like a plot. Well, the plot is in the poetry of it. The plot is in the repetition and the theatricality of it, or whatever. The visual style of it, you know. So it's not your normal type of a movie. It's, you know, it's one of those avant-garde, artsy European movies that came from the time period. And she also would later star in Louis Buñuel's 1972 film, Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, is one of the bourgeoisie. She's the wife of the, I can't remember his character's name, and she has an affair with Fernando Rey, who's a diplomat visiting France. But she's in this movie. She plays, I guess she plays a vampire. She was deliberately styled to look similar to Marlene Dietrich, and her fellow passenger, fellow vampire, who's much younger than her, is an actress named Andre Rau, who's styled after Louise Brooks. And there's been these murders that have been happening in Europe, and this couple's on their way. The husband wants to go to, I think it's England, to see his mother, and his wife wants to come along because they just got married like a day or so ago, and the husband doesn't want his wife to come along because he doesn't think his wife would be received very well by his mother. But anyways, before that can happen, they meet Delphine Seyrig and Andre Rau, and they're not. They sort of cling on to them, and complications ensue. The husband gets caught up in something grisly, and they have to cover it up. And that's sort of spoiling it. But try not to spoil it. But the couple gets involved in a certain way that sort of they can't extricate themselves out of, and which leads to what logically becomes the conclusion of the film. So I recommend this movie, but it's probably not everybody's cup of tea again. You know, it's probably like the people that watch Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama probably are not going to dig a European art film like Daughters of Darkness. You know, it's just, unless you're the type of person that likes to watch both European art films and 80s slasher, silly, goofy movies, you know, or, you know, so, but, you know, in terms of my rating on this film, I would give it probably, I guess I'd give it 4 stars out of 5. Okay, and the last film is pretty awkwardly bad in a sense. I mean, um, it is more of a logical plot to it than, say, The Prowler does or Sorority Babes. But it's very amateurly done. So the production values are not the greatest on it. It was done in '63, and it looks like it was shot in 16 millimeter, and it looks like the sound was. It looks pretty amateur, but it was directed by a person named Herschel Gordon Lewis, who's a legend in the film world. You know, he would direct erotic movies that, well, like Joe Bob Briggs was saying, and I think I've heard about Herschel Gordon Lewis before. He doesn't really care. He didn't really. He's dead now. He died at the age of 90. But I don't think he really cared about like whether his films were like, you know, the equivalent of a Fellini or Bergman or a Kurosawa film, or if they were the equivalent of a Coppola or a Spielberg or a Lucasfilm. He was just a businessman basically. He didn't really make films of those kinds of. He didn't make films of that kind of nature movie. He just made films for the buck, you know. So after he made some erotic films, he decided with his partner to make this really bloody movie, this really gory movie, which they say is like the film that started off gore, and it's called Blood Feast. So it involves this woman, this old middle-aged woman or whatever. She wants to have a party for her daughter, so she hires this caterer, and he says he's going to have an Egyptian feast for her. But this caterer is a little whacked out. He's crazy basically, and he's going after these young women and cutting them up, cutting their body parts up, and that's what's going to be used for the feast. And the police are not able to right away to find who the killer is. The acting is over the top. Some of the lines sound like they're reading it right off the page. They sound very artificial. I guess I'd recommend this film if you want to see a film just for the sake of seeing a film that is a landmark in the history of cinema, in the sense of like maybe one of the first gore films, or in the history of like what started what was the big. It was like around the drive-in circuit for like 7 years. If you want to see it from that standpoint, then maybe you should watch it. But otherwise, you might as well miss it, because it's just a piece of garbage, in my opinion. Like there's a line with garbage, but I won't spoil it unless you want to see it. I'm gonna give this film 3 marginal stars up. If it was 2.5, I wouldn't recommend it. So it's only for the people that really want to watch it. So, anyways, that does it for this week. I'm sort of on a kick with the Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. I want to keep watching those. I think the next film he has is a film called Basket Case. He's got another Hellraiser which I believe is the first Hellraiser. I've seen one of the Hellraiser movies, maybe two of them. Um, so I've got to watch those. I think he has another film called Pieces. I think he has a few other ones too. Um, I'm trying to get it done, get it out of the way. But I want to watch the Jean-Luc Godard film. Every time that they have a Jean-Luc Godard film on movie, I feel obligated to watch it because not out of a bad sense, because I like David Lynch. Godard is like hit or miss for me. He's kind of polarizing. Either you hate his films or I like his films, and I think I can say that after Weekend from '67, all the films I've seen since then, I haven't seen Hail Mary, but since then, I don't really work for me. And I think they're too they're so artistic that they just don't work filmically. That they just become an exercise, and they don't really they're not really entertaining or um, I don't know, instructional. Or, I don't know. They just seem like these semantic, if that's the right word, um, art artistic exercises that mean nothing. I mean, because with the Weekend, you have the artistry and the the um, the text. People reading from books and playing off words with the title cards and the visual nature of the film. And the apocalyptic backgrounds of the burning cars. Like saying this is the end of civilization. Weekend is a fantastic movie. It's probably my favorite Godard film. I mean, I like Alphaville a lot, and Breathless and Band of Outsiders are good too. But Weekend is fantastic. But I think after Weekend, I don't know. I don't think I've seen a better film better than Weekend after he made Weekend, I would say. So, anyways, enough yammering. I'll leave my blog down right here. I'll put it up for about 40 seconds right now, so we'll wait for that to pass. I'll put it up, or not 40 seconds, 20 seconds, I'm sorry. And I'll just mention I have some GarageBand videos that have been up recently. I might put up some more. I've been, like, every time I hook my guitar up to my computer, I tend to record a song, but I never finish it or whatever. Like I have a bunch of songs that I recorded, but I was running out of space in the hard drive, so I put it on my external hard drive, and I don't know when I'll go back to those, but that's you might see those coming at some point. So, anyways, enough yammering. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.